Alright, hello everybody. Friendly Red here, back with another report to relay regarding games on my radar. We're nearing the end of summer, so game releases are starting to pick up again, even though the quantity of ones I'm personally interested in is still kinda low, at least compared to previous months covered so far this year. Either way, just like last month, the quality is still high. In fact, I think this month is by far the strongest yet for the summer of 2024, but I suppose it would be best to show and tell as to why I think that. So then, let's get to it. We've got to get quite a bit into the month before we have our first notable release, that being Black Myth: Wukong. Another year, another Souls-like to add to the collection, huh? Sure, FromSoft themselves delivered the goods with the Elden Ring DLC back in June, but it's always fun to see what other developers cook up in the genre, and Black Myth: Wukong has been looking pretty good for quite some time now. Not only is it quite compelling looking gameplay-wise, but the game being a new take on Sun Wukong's journey to the west, set within the framework of a Souls-like, is really cool. And reminds me of what we saw last year with Lies of P. You know, what with that game also being a Souls-like interpretation of another piece of classical literature, Pinocchio. Honestly, Lies of P ended up being one of the best games of last year, and it was such a well put together and fun Souls-like that honestly, I think it could be easily mistaken as an actual From Software made game if you didn't know any better. And I think Black Myth: Wukong has the potential to pull off a similar feat. We'll have to wait a bit longer to see for sure, but from what I've seen of the game, I'm pretty confident in it delivering the goods. I should also mention that it's pushing some pretty sweet tech and graphical features, at least on PC. So if you've got a good enough rig, this will be a feast for the eyes too. Black Myth: Wukong will be releasing on Tuesday, August 20th for PlayStation 5 and PC, with a version for the Xbox Series console set to launch at a yet-to-be-determined date. Following Black Myth: Wukong, the very next day we have Mika in the Witch's Mountain. Now this is one I've been waiting for. Ever since I saw this game for the first time, I was sold on the graphical style alone, as it's heavily inspired by the animation style of Studio Ghibli's films, which are some of my all-time favorites. Aside from the gorgeous visuals, the game itself seems like a really cozy, relaxing, and fun little game where you get to explore an island as Mika, using your aspiring witch powers and flying broom to deliver packages to the inhabitants, as well as go off and find new discoveries and secrets as you see fit. This, alongside another talking point for a bit later, is easily my most anticipated release for the month, and I cannot wait to jump in, fly around, and just chill out in this game and take in as much of it as I can. I feel like this will be a game that's not only fun to actually do the story and main objectives in, but also just a great sandbox-like experience, as flying around on a broom on its own just seems like a lot of fun, and could keep me entertained for a bit, maybe with some chill music or a podcast or something on in the background. Absolutely keep an eye out on this one if you're a fan of the Ghibli films, or just cutesy/chill adventure games in general. Mika in the Witch's Mountain will be releasing on Wednesday, August 21st for Nintendo Switch and PC, with versions for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series consoles planned for a later date. We're doing a lot of flip-flopping here, aren't we? I mean, we start off with a pretty dark and serious game with Black Myth: Wukong, move into a more colorful and charming game with Mika, and now move back into dark and serious territory with our next game, that being the newest entry in the Famicom Detective Club series, Emio, the Smiling Man. Now, if you don't know about Famicom Detective Club, well, you're probably not alone, as the series was exclusive to Japan for the longest time, originally releasing over there on the Famicom Disk System. Aside from some re-releases for GBA in the mid-2000s, the series never went much further than that, or at least until 2021, when remakes of the two original games released on Nintendo Switch worldwide, under the names Famicom Detective Club: The Missing Heir, and Famicom Detective Club: The Girl Who Stands Behind. Even with the remakes releasing on a system as popular as the Switch, well, I'm not too sure how much of a splash it made in the grand scheme of things, as the games were still fundamentally the same as they were back on the Disk System, being visual novel point-and-click-like adventure games with pretty light gameplay. Still, even if the actual gameplay is lighter than most other games, I think that they were really cool to see remade fully, and finally localized and made available to a wider audience, as even if they are pretty niche, they're still very high-quality games, and ones that can be enjoyed by anyone, regardless of if they've ever played a visual novel or not. I'm not one much for VNs, but I still really like these two games. And I think it's awesome that a new game in a series that's almost 40 years old can release today on the Switch, and I love seeing Nintendo bring back older or forgotten franchises of theirs. Also, side note, I think it's also just kind of cool that this will be a new M-rated Nintendo-published game, as we don't see many of those very often at all, and it's always fascinating and strange when they do release. So, if you're into visual novels or mystery titles, well, I think you know what you need to buy on the Nintendo Switch this month. If you've never played anything like Famicom Detective Club, but are interested in doing so, I can wholly recommend the remakes of the first two games on Switch, and would probably suggest trying one of those out first before jumping right into Emio, as this new title is going to be a bit more pricey than the remakes were. Famicom Detective Club, Emio the Smiling Man will be releasing exclusively on Nintendo Switch on Thursday, August 29th. Now, on the same day as EMEO, we have our next game releasing as well, which is not only my other hotly anticipated game for the month alongside Mika, but is yet another instance of us flip-flopping between dark and serious to colorful and adventurous. So, finally, after years and years of nothing but re-releases and remakes of older titles in the series, we're finally getting a wholly new entry in the Mana series, or Seiken Densetsu, with Visions of Mana, which is apparently considered the 5th mainline title in the franchise. Now, I'm not going to act like I know a lot about the history and legacy of this series, as I only really learned of it and played it with the collection of Mana that released for the Nintendo Switch, and then went on to play the remake of the 3rd game, Trials of Mana, in 2020. Regardless, I really enjoyed what I played of the series, and I'm super excited for this new game, both for myself and the longtime fans. I mean, if it's true that Visions of Mana is the 5th mainline game, then that means it's been almost 30 years since the last new mainline entry, which was Legend of Mana in 1999, although it did get a remaster itself back in 2021. Visions of Mana is looking to just be a really solid new Mana game, taking some heavy inspiration in graphical design and gameplay from the 2020 remake of Trials, but with even more refinements and additions to just make for a super colorful, inviting, and fun-looking action RPG. It's been a great year for JRPGs so far, and Visions of Mana is looking to be yet another winner in a long line of great games to play this year in the genre. I for sure would recommend checking it out if you're into action RPGs of any kind, and I wouldn't worry about this being the 5th game in the mainline series either, as from what I can tell, while the games all take place in the same world, they're usually years and years and years apart from one another, and are pretty self-contained. Visions of Mana will be releasing on Thursday, August 29th for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. And, closing out August on the last Friday of the month, we have Star Wars Outlaws, the latest and greatest game to grace us from the galaxy from a long time ago that was also very, very far away. Now, I'm personally a bit mixed on this one. I've been keeping up with it here and there, and I do really like the concept of the game, being an open-world, planet-hopping adventure where you take on the role of a bounty hunter, carrying out different tasks and missions, all for the sake of those sweet, sweet credits. Of course, I'm sure the story will end up being more about just that, but it does seem like, should you want to, you could just use this game as the ultimate Star Wars bounty hunter sandbox, which is pretty awesome. My main concern with the game comes from the fact that, well, this is a Ubisoft title, meaning we could see a lot of the typical Ubisoft formula rear its ugly head in this game. I for sure enjoyed some Ubisoft games in the past, but I feel as time has gone on and I've played more and more of them, they just kind of start to get samey and too jam-packed with lots of content, sure, but mostly filler content that just kind of bloats the game. Given their spotty track record with the releases as of late, as well as some worries I have regarding the game's technical performance, this is one I'll for sure keep on my radar, but probably won't buy as soon as it releases. Plus, I mean, Ubisoft games tend to go on sale very quickly from their initial launch, so I'd say it's worth waiting on even if you were wanting to jump in on day one. Star Wars Outlaws will be releasing on Friday, August 30th for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. And there we have it. All the releases that are, in fact, on my radar for the 8th month of this 2024 year. Some very interesting patterns with the releases this month, but at least there's for sure some good variety in not only the tones of the games being released, but gameplay as well. From Souls-likes to adventure games, action RPGs, and VNs, there's quite a lot to satisfy any kind of video game player for this month. And yeah, I hope now you can see why I think this month is easily the best month of games this summer has on offer. We'll have to wait just a bit longer to see if these releases stick their respective landings, but I'm pretty confident in them doing so. Or at least the two titles I'm really itching to play, that being Mika and the Witch's Mountain, and Visions of Mana. With all that being said, however, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. Continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated. I hope I was able to bring to your attention some games you might not have known about, and of course, I hope you enjoyed my discussion and thoughts on them. For now though, I'll see you next time.